الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا وحبيبنا ومرشدنا محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد أما بعد. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our creator, our sustainer, the one who provided us with iman, the one who made us from the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, thereby honoring us again, and then gave us the tawfiq to recite the kalima, to come to the masjid, to perform our salah, and to sit in a gathering where we hear His word, the Qur'an, and the words of His beloved Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Honor upon honor upon honor. And so it is for us to make the most of the time that we have. Ensure that we have the right intention, ensure that we do this for the sake of Allah Ta'ala, to please Him, and then to take away anything that we have, anything that we have gained, and then to bring it into our lives, and then also to pass the message on to others. Now we've been hearing from Surah Al-Baqarah, the surah of the cow. This is the longest surah in the Qur'an. It was revealed in Medina Munawwara. We've heard this many times. It was revealed near the beginning of the time of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Medina Munawwara. And then we heard about the description of the believers, the kuffar, the disbelievers, and also the munafiqeen. And then we heard the many things that Allah Ta'ala did for the Banu Israel. Then we heard some commandments from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala regarding fasting, regarding the capital punishment, regarding Hajj. And then we heard about the command to defend Islam and one's belief against all external attacks, even if it means defending through a military means. If this is what's required to defend the Muslims, to defend one's own iman and one's own identity, then so be it. This is the command from Allah Ta'ala, as He said, كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الْقِتَالُ وَهُوَ كُرْهٌ لَكُمْ. Even if it is difficult for you, this is necessary. But this is regarding external attacks. Then there are internal difficulties within a Muslim society, which was at the time being built up by the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba radiallahu anhum in Medina Munawwara. And so we heard about alcohol, about gambling, so social problems, and how they should be addressed. And Allah Ta'ala taught us in a beautiful way how these things can be dealt with. Firstly, by teaching us that the harms from these things outweigh the benefits. And then slowly easing the Muslim's mindset into accepting that these things are indeed harmful, completely harmful, and so they should be forbidden. And so the ayat of forbidding them and making them haram came later. And then we heard about the family, because of course every society is built up from the family unit, and it expands in this way. And so we heard about the best people to marry. And so we heard that even if a man is a very wealthy man, he may be a king, he may be very wealthy, he may have a great status in the society. But if he is a mushrik, if he does not believe in Allah, then a slave man who has no respect in society, and yet he has iman, he is of higher rank in the sight of Allah. And so a person should marry his daughter to him instead. And similarly, a woman who may have much beauty and she may be very respectable in society, and she may be very educated and so on. If she does not have iman, then a slave girl who has iman is better than her. Showing us the importance of iman and teaching us the sort of person that we should marry, the attributes that we should look for in a prospective spouse, husband or wife. And then we heard about talaq. So we heard about bringing a family together, but then of course inevitably there will be some families that don't stay together. There will be some couples that just don't get on, and they may realize this some days into their marriage or indeed some years later. And so then Allah Ta'ala teaches us how to deal with this problem, because we know how much trouble this can cause. Whole families are split because of this. And you have enmity that builds up between two families that can never be dealt with, over generations sometimes. And this used to happen even amongst the Arabs. It's not something that's specific to our time. So how to address this? How should talaq be given? What are the etiquettes? And we heard about this from the Qur'an, some of the ayat that we heard before, but also from some of the hadith that have been mentioned. So we heard that وَالْمُطَلَّقَاتُ يَتَرَبَّصْنَ بِأَنفُسِهِنَّ ثَلَاثَةَ قُرُوءٍ, that the women who have been given talaq, who have been divorced, then they should wait for 3 menstrual cycles to pass. And it's necessary for them to pass on the information about if they are carrying a child or not, if they are actually pregnant at the time or not. It's necessary for them to disclose that information to this man who has divorced them. And they should do this if they truly believe in Allah and the Day of Judgment. And through all this discussion, we actually hear the importance of taqwa, the importance of the fear of Allah, the importance of belief in Allah and the Day of Judgment. Because by mentioning the belief in Allah and the Day of Judgment, one is reminded that if we hide anything that is necessary to disclose, then of course Allah is watching. And on the Day of Judgment, we will be held to account for this. And we also heard later on, Wallahu Azizun Hakim, and Allah is most severe when it comes to punishing. He has all honor, and He is the Hakim, and He is most wise. When He gives these commandments, He does it for our benefit, through His infinite wisdom. And then we also heard about the boundaries of Allah. Tilka hududullah, these are the boundaries of Allah. And each time there is discussion about reconciliation. Whenever Allah mentions here about the husband and the wife coming together again after they have been disunited, after they've split up, when there's discussion about bringing them together, it's not necessarily about them getting along on financial terms or agreeing where they're going to live. No, it's about whether they agree that they will be able to uphold the boundaries of Allah. إِلَّا أَن يُقِيمَا حُدُودَ اللَّهِ. Because this is most important. They may agree on everything else, but will they fall down when it comes to upholding the commands of Allah Ta'ala? If they feel that they won't be able to, then it's best if they stay away from each other. Because this will cause difficulty. And there will be no barakah, there will be no blessing in that marriage. They may get along perfectly fine in every other way, but if they don't uphold the commandments of Allah, then there's no blessing. And so there will be discord, there will be arguments. وَمَنْ يَتَعَدَّ حُدُودَ اللَّهِ. And a warning here. And whoever goes beyond the commandment, the boundaries of Allah, whoever goes beyond the boundaries of Allah, the hudud of Allah, فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ, then they are truly the wrongdoers, they are the oppressors, they are those people who do dhulm. Dhulm meaning oppression, as we all know. And they are not oppressing anyone else. No one else is affected here. But they are affecting themselves. Because by disbelieving, by not going according to the commands of Allah, they are hurting themselves. Because on the Day of Judgment, they will be hurt. Because they have disobeyed Allah. We also heard, and talaq is a difficult subject for people to discuss. Because it's an emotive subject. People feel very emotional about this. Understandably so. Indeed, of all the things that are permissible in Islam, this is the most hated to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so one should be very careful when it comes to talaq, and we'll discuss this inshallah. Now we know that when a man marries a woman, then he becomes the owner of 3 talaqs. That's all. And he should be very careful about how he uses them. And unfortunately there seems to be a misconception amongst many people that it's necessary, if they want to give divorce to someone, that they have to say it 3 times for it to count. But no, actually if you say it 3 times, then you've used all of them. And then what happens is what comes in this next ayah. Allah says, فَإِن طَلَّقَهَا فَلَا تَحِلُّ لَهُ مِن بَعْدُ حَتَّى تَنْكِحَ زَوْجًا غَيْرَهُ. And so if he divorces her, so this is on the 3rd time, then she will not become halal for him. This woman that he has just divorced will not become halal for him until she marries another man. Now here Allah has said until she marries another man, until she does nikah with another man. But nikah can also mean sexual intimacy as well, depending on the context. So the Sahaba, at the beginning, there was a feeling that it might just be that all she has to do is go and marry another man, and even on the same day, she can ask for a divorce, the man might divorce her, and then she can go back to the original husband, and that might be enough. But then there are examples from the Hadith where it's not as clear as this. It's not as easy as this, should I say. And we see there's a famous story narrated by Aisha radiallahu anha. It said, دخلت امرأة رفاعة القرضي. The wife, indeed, the ex-wife of Rifa'a al-Qaradi, who was a Sahabi radiallahu anhu, she entered in the room where Aisha radiallahu anha was. وأنا وأبو بكر عند النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. And I and Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu were both with the Prophet ﷺ in that room. And this lady entered and she said, فقالت إن رفاعة طلقني البتة. Surely Rifa'a has completely divorced me, meaning he has divorced me 3 times. He has used his 3rd divorce. So this is it. So then afterwards, as we know, she has to marry another man if she wants to go back. وَإِنَّ عَبْدَ الرَّحْمَنِ بْنَ الزَّبِيرِ تَزَوَّجَنِي. So then this other Sahabi, radiallahu anhu, Abdul Rahman ibn Zabir, he married her. وَإِنَّمَا عِنْدَهُ مِثْلُ الْهَدَبَةِ وَأَخَذَتْ هَدَبَةً مِّن جِلْبَابِهَا. And then she said, and she was very clear here, that he has as this piece of cloth is. So basically, she took that piece of cloth, what we would call the daman, and she showed that this is basically what he has. Basically, he was impotent. And so she made this very clear to the Prophet ﷺ that I have no use from him, I want to go back, basically. So at the time when this discussion was happening, there was another Sahabi, Khalid ibn Sa'id, who was stood at the door, and he hadn't been given permission to enter yet, but he could hear what was being discussed. So he knew Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was in the room. So he said, Ya Abu Bakr, ألا تنهى هذه عما تجهر به بين يدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. That, O Abu Bakr, do you not stop this woman from saying what she is saying in front of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Basically what he's saying is that she is being shameless here and she is saying these things in front of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How can she say this? فما زاد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن التبسم. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not increase upon this except by smiling. So he simply smiled at this point. So he's obviously heard what she has said. He understands her plight. He also understands what this Sahabi, how he feels about her speaking like this. But he didn't complain. He didn't say, no, you shouldn't speak to me like this. He understood where she was coming from. She was stuck in a difficult place, and so he understood, and so he smiled. And then فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كأنك تريدين أن ترجعي إلى رفاعة. It seems as though you want to go back to Rifa'a, the man who had divorced her 3 times. La, I'm afraid you can't. حتى تذوقي عسيلته ويذوق عسيلتك. You can't go back to him until you taste from the honey of this man, this new husband, this current husband, and he tastes from your honey. Basically, until you sleep with this, until you sleep with him. Only then will you be able to, and then if he then divorces you, and then you have your iddah of 3 menstrual cycles, and then afterwards, if you still want to go back to rifa'ah, then by all means. But until then, you can't. And so this made it clear that when Allah says, حَتَّى تَنْكِحَ زَوْجًا غَيْرًا, that she can't go back to the original husband until she marries another man, then what Allah is saying is that actually she needs to sleep with this new man, this new husband, and then if they decide that actually it's not working out and he divorces her, then after the iddah she can go back to the original husband. Now all of this is meant as a deterrent, as you can imagine. No man wants his wife to then marry another man, to sleep with him and then to come back to himself. No man wants this. And so it's a deterrent to stop men from just throwing talaq everywhere and just saying it without thinking. It should be taken seriously. فَإِن طَلَّقَهَا فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْهِمَا أَن يَتَرَاجَعَا إِن ظَنَّ أَن يُقِيمَ حُدُودَ اللَّهِ. So then Allah says, فَإِن طَلَّقَهَا. And so if this new husband, after he has slept with this wife, with this woman, if he then divorces her, then there is no harm in her going back to the original husband if they think, if they truly believe that they will be able to uphold the boundaries of Allah. Once again, look, this is the requirement here. That it doesn't matter if they get along and if everything is fine and they are able to have a nice conversation. This doesn't matter here. Allah is making it very clear. If they are able to uphold the commands of Allah, the boundaries of Allah, only then should they agree to go back to one another. وَتِلْكَ حُدُودُ اللَّهِ يُبَيِّنُهَا لِقَوْمٍ يَعْلَمُونَ. And these are the boundaries of Allah that He is making apparent. He is explaining to you, for you. لِقَوْمٍ, for the people who know, for the people who seek this knowledge and who want this knowledge. So Allah is showing us here the importance of this subject. It should not be taken lightly. Now, there are various ahadith regarding the person who marries the woman so that she can go back to the original husband. Because you can imagine if one man has divorced his wife and he has said it 3 times, but she wants to go back to him and he wants to take her back, there's only one way he can do this. They can do this, and that's if she marries another man and sleeps with him. Now, not every man will be in agreement to do this, to provide this service almost. It takes a type of person to do this. Also, when this person is marrying her, the second person is marrying her, then he should not have the intention that he is doing this simply so that he can then divorce her and she can go back to the original husband. No, he should have the intention of staying with her. If they both then decide that no, they do want to divorce and they do want to split and she does want to go back to the original husband, that's fair enough. But in Islam, the nikah cannot be a temporary thing. It has to be with the intention of it being permanent. So such a man is known as the muhallil, that person who makes this woman halal for the original husband is known as the muhallil. And the Prophet ﷺ has actually cursed such a person because of the sort of action that it is. And we see there is a narration from Ali radiallahu anhu who says that لَعْنَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ آكِلَ الرِّبَى. The Prophet ﷺ cursed various types of people who do certain actions. and they are as follows: the person who eats interest, وَمُوكِلَهُ, and the person who feeds interest, who gives interest, وَشَاهِدَيْهِ, and the two witnesses who are there during that transaction which includes interest. They have been cursed too. وَكَاتِبَهُ, and the one who writes this contract, who writes this agreement which includes interest. That person is also accursed. وَالْوَاشِمَةَ وَالْمُسْتَوْشِمَةَ لِلْحُسْنِ, and the woman who tattoos others, or the person, man or woman, who tattoos other people. And at the time, in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, it used to generally be women who did tattoos for women to beautify them. This was the idea. And so if a woman or a person, or a man, has a tattoo done to beautify himself or herself, or for it to look good or whatever, then that person, or the person who is doing the tattooing, the tattoo artist, they are also cursed. وَالْمُحَلِّلِ, and then this person that has been mentioned, the one who makes this woman halal for the original husband. وَالْمُحَلَّلْ لَهُ, and also the original husband who has asked for this to be done. He is also cursed here, subhanAllah. وَكَانَ يَنْهَى عَنِ النَّوْحِ, and the Prophet ﷺ also used to forbid people from mourning loudly. So if someone's relative has passed away, then to wail and to cry loudly and to make a scene, this has also been forbidden. A person may obviously be saddened and they may well cry, that this is fine, this is natural, but to then make a scene and to shout and to scream in this way, this is also forbidden. And then we also see in the Hadith where the Prophet ﷺ has said, ثَلَاثٌ جِدُّهُنَّ جِدٌّ وَهَزْلُهُنَّ جِدٌّ. There are three types of things. There are three things that if they are uttered in seriousness, then it is counted as serious. And even if someone jokes about them, it is still counted as serious. And they are nikah, talaq, meaning divorce, and raj'ah, meaning when a man has given a divorce and then he decides that he wants to take his wife back, and so he says he's taking her back into his nikah, this is also counted. So these three things are counted as serious. So even if a person says, no, I was only joking, no, this won't wash. So if a person says, I divorce you, haha, I'm just joking, no, this doesn't work, because this is a very serious matter. Similarly, there's another hadith, another narration where the Prophet ﷺ said that the three things are talaq, itaq, and nikah. So talaq meaning divorce, itaq meaning freeing a slave, and nikah meaning marriage. So itaq here is different. So this is where a man says to his slave that I free you. Ha, I'm just joking. Well, this is a very serious matter. You know, you're playing with a person's emotions here, so this is not allowed. So even if you've said it as a joke, it counts, and that's it, he's free. So one should be very careful with these things, with nikah, with divorce, and with these things, because they are always counted. So generally from this we can deduce that it's important for us to be careful with how we use our tongue, what we say, because even a single word can have major consequences. The next ayah, Allah Ta'ala says, وَإِذَا طَلَّقْتُمُ النِّسَاءَ فَبَلَغْنَ أَجَلَهُنَّ فَأَمْسِكُوهُنَّ بِمَعْرُوفٍ أَوْ سَرِّحُوهُنَّ بِمَعْرُوفٍ. You may remember that last time we said that Allah Ta'ala is saying that وَلَهُنَّ مِثْلُ الَّذِي عَلَيْهِنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, that for the women have a right to goodwill and to good relations, in the same way that men have a right to good relations from their wives. So here Allah is saying, and when you divorce the women, when you divorce a woman, then and they reach the end of their iddah, and that was the cooling off period that we mentioned before. After this, at that point, you obviously have a decision to make. Either you keep her in your nikah, you take her back in your nikah, or you set her free. And this should be ma'roof, with goodness, with goodwill. So if you're going to hold on to her, فَأَمْسِكُوهُنَّ, if you're going to take her back into your nikah, then don't do it just to tease her or to harm her in any way or to torture her. And similarly, if you let her go, then let her go. Don't then stalk her or give her any trouble. Let her carry on with her life. And this has been mentioned because it was known at the time that the mushrikeen, they used to divorce their women, and then just as the iddah was about to finish, they would say, no, I'll take you back in my nikah. So they would take her back, and then straight afterwards they would say, right, I've divorced you again. And so then the iddah time, this cooling off period, then is restarted. And so in this way she would be stuck in limbo. She would be stuck. She can't go off and marry someone else if she wants, or she's not free, and she's not strictly married to this man either, so she's his prisoner. And they would torture them in this way. And of course Allah Ta'ala did not like this, and so He made this clear. وَلَا تُمْسِكُوهُنَّ ضِرَارًا لِتَعْتَدُوا, and do not hold on to them to cause them harm. لِتَعْتَدُوا, because otherwise if you do this, you will go beyond the bounds of Allah. And we've been hearing about the bounds of Allah. And if you do this, of course, the punishment is most severe from Allah. So be very careful. Don't just hold on to them just to harm them. وَمَنْ يَفْعَلْ ذَلِكَ فَقَدْ ظَلَمَ نَفْسَهُ. Again, Allah is making it clear that whoever does this, then he has oppressed himself. Because if he does this, he's not harming that woman. Of course, temporarily she will be hurt, but ultimately he will suffer on the Day of Judgment. وَلَا تَتَّخِذُوا آيَاتِ اللَّهِ هُزُوًا. And do not take the ayat of Allah, the signs of Allah, the verses of Allah, the commandments of Allah as a joke. Again, Allah is showing how important and how serious this matter is. Don't take these things as a joke. If you're going to set them free, then set them free. Otherwise, if you're going to keep her, then keep her with goodwill, and only if you think you can uphold the commands of Allah. وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ. And remember the favor of Allah upon you. وَمَا أَنزَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ مِنَ الْكِتَابِ. And remember the favor of Allah upon you. Of course, there are many favors of Allah. And so Allah has made it open here. One can think of many, many, many things. The list is endless, the favors of Allah upon us. And then He specifies here, وَمَا أَنزَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ مِنَ الْكِتَابِ. And remember what Allah has sent upon you from the book, meaning the Qur'an. So for guidance. So this is the book, the revelation. So He has sent this for you. وَالْحِكْمَةِ, and the wisdom. And the Mufassirin say this refers to the Hadith, the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because of course it's the Sunnah that explains the Qur'an. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a walking and talking Qur'an. If you wanted to see how the Qur'an can be brought into one's life, look at the Sunnah. So in this way Allah has sent down the book as revelation, and also the hikmah, the wisdom, which is the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And why has He done this? يَعِظُكُمْ بِهِ, to advise you, to provide you with advice on how you should live, how you should conduct yourselves. Especially when it comes to such a difficult subject like talaq. He is giving us clear boundaries and clear explanations on how we should behave. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَاعْلَمُوا. Remember I mentioned how Allah Ta'ala wants us to be reminded of the importance of belief in Him, in the belief in the Day of Judgment, the last day, but also in taqwa. So Allah is saying, وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَاعْلَمُوا, and fear Allah. And know, remember, أَنَّ اللَّهَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمٍ, that surely Allah is the knower of all things. This is particularly relevant here because remember, when a person gives talaq, when he says those words of divorce to his wife, it's usually just the two of them in one room. There's no one else listening, no one else watching. So it's between him, her, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this man might want to just think, no, it's fine, I didn't say it. He might convince himself, I didn't say it, no, I didn't mean it, no. It doesn't matter, I'll just carry on. No, if you said it, remember Allah is watching. And He knows everything that you do. He is the knower of all things. And so here, specifically Allah is mentioning, so that we are always careful, always mindful of Allah's presence, of Allah's knowledge. وَإِذَا طَلَّقْتُمُ النِّسَاءَ فَبَلَغْنَ أَجَلَهُنَّ. Again, a similar beginning to the ayah. And when you divorce the women, and they finish their time, their iddah, فَلَا تَعْضُلُوهُنَّ أَن يَنْكِحْنَ أَزْوَاجَهُنَّ إِذَا تَرَاضَوْا بَيْنَهُمْ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. So as for the women who have been divorced once or twice, not the third time, but the original husband, the husband who has divorced them, still has one or two talaqs left. So he hasn't used them all up. Then when they finish their iddah, don't force these women to stay away from these men. This is in reference to a story that came up in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, where Ma'qil ibn Yasar al-Muzani, radiyallahu anhu, he was a Sahabi. He had a sister, and he married his sister off to another Sahabi. Now this Sahabi divorced her, and the time finished. The iddah, this cooling off period that a person has, this iddah finished. At that point, she actually wanted to go back to this husband. And this husband who had divorced her, he had now realized that he actually wanted her back too. So they wanted to get back together. And so he wanted to do another nikah and then take her back. But this Sahabi, Ma'qil ibn Yasar, and this is something we can all understand, he was very angry. And he said to this man, this other Sahabi, that I honored you by giving you my sister in marriage. And then you divorced her. And now you expect me to hand her back to you? How can you expect this? And he said some slightly harsh words as well, shall we say. Perhaps cursing as well. And this is very common. And we all know of situations like this. But of course we know that this woman wanted to go back to this man, and the man wanted her back too. And you can imagine the difficulty that it would have caused, because this brother-in-law wasn't allowing her to go back. And he was the wali, he was the guardian. So then Allah Ta'ala sends down this ayah where He says, and when you divorce the women and they reach the time when they finish their iddah, then do not force them not to go back to their original husbands. إِذَا تَرَاضَوْا بَيْنَهُمْ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. If they both agree together to live harmoniously, to live with goodness. So if they both agree that they will live happily and they will live nicely and they won't fight and they won't cause trouble and they will uphold the commands of Allah and the boundaries of Allah, then don't stop them. Because if they both want to get back together and you stop them, then this may open the doors to sin. They may then still come back together, but through haram means. So let them do the nikah again and come back together. ذَلِكَ يُوعَظُ بِهِ مَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. Again reminding us of the belief in Allah and the last day. That this is the advice that is being given to those people who believe in Allah and in the last day. ذَلِكُمْ أَزْكَى لَكُمْ وَأَطْهَرُ. That is better, that is more correct for you, more righteous for you, and it is more pure for you. that you simply let them go back together and don't stop them, because otherwise it will cause corruption in the land. Haram will become widespread. So it is purer for you. Wallahu ya'lamu, and Allah knows, wa antum la ta'lamun, and you do not know. Allah knows what is best for you. So take this advice from Allah. He knows what is purer for you. Take it. You do not know. You don't know what the consequences of any decision that you make will be. But Allah knows. So accept this advice from Allah. And we see then that Ma'qil ibn Yasar radiallahu anhu, as soon as he heard this, he said, Sam'un ya Rabbi wa ta'ala. I have heard my Lord and I have accepted. And so then he called this man, this brother-in-law, and he said, I have given you back, I have married my sister to you, and I have in this way honored you. So look how this Sahabi was. He would have felt very aggrieved by the fact that his sister was divorced by this man. And we see all the time that when a divorce happens within our families, then we often don't even want to look at that person who is on the other side, shall we say. And yet, as soon as this ayah came down, and he was furious with this man, and we see the words that he uses in the hadith regarding him, and yet still, as soon as this ayah comes, he accepts from his Lord, he accepts this advice that Allah gives, and he says, fine, I've heard and I accept, I will follow. And he allowed them to get back together. Wallahu ya'lam wa antum la ta'lam. And then following on from this, Allah Ta'ala mentions another topic, وَالْوَالِدَاتُ يُرْضِعْنَ أَوْلَادَهُنْ. So this is what follows on. So once the divorce has happened, there will of course be some women who are pregnant. And so if they're pregnant, they will then have to be provided for by the man, by this husband who has just divorced them. And their iddah doesn't just finish after 3 menstrual cycles. Of course they won't have any menstrual cycles. So their iddah is until أَن يَضَعْنَ حَمْلَهُنْ, until they give birth. And then afterwards, they can then negotiate. And a lot of negotiation is required here, as Allah mentions. وَالْوَالِدَاتُ, and the mothers, so the women who then give birth to a child after they have been divorced. يُرْضِعْنَ أَوْلَادَهُنَّ حَوْلَيْنِ كَامِلَيْنِ, they will breastfeed their children for 2 years. لِمَنْ أَرَادَ أَن يُتِمَّ الرَّضَاعَةَ. But this is of course for those people who choose to complete the period of time when they should breastfeed. What this is teaching us, and there are some discussions amongst the ulama regarding the absolute endpoint of how long a person can breastfeed, if it's 2 years, 2.5 years, because in another place 2.5 years are mentioned, and so on. But this is for as long as the couple, this man and the woman, agree. لِمَنْ أَرَادَ أَن يُتِمَّ الرَّضَاعَةَ. So these 2 years are only for those people who choose to finish the time period. But of course there will be many couples who decide after 1 year, maybe 6 months, that okay, fine, this is enough, we can move on to bottle feeding or whatever. وَعَلَى الْمَوْلُودِ لَهُ رِزْقُهُنَّ وَكِسْوَتُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. But for the man for whom the child has been born, meaning the father of this child, رِزْقُهُنَّ, he has to provide sustenance, food for the mother, and he has to provide their clothing, وَكِسْوَتُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, nicely. Remember, he has divorced her, but he's found himself stuck, essentially, because he's divorced her, but then he's found out she's pregnant. So he now feels stuck. He'll probably be aggrieved in this situation. But even so, if he's now breastfeeding this child for him, of course, then he needs to provide for her, and he has to be nice about her. لا تكلف نفس إلا وسعها. No soul is burdened by anything other than what it can endure. So if a man is wealthy, then it's easy for him, and then he should provide according to how much he has, and according to the going rate at the time, or what a woman in that society might expect. But of course, if a man is very poor, then he should still provide. He has to. This is a requirement on him. But he should give according to what he can. But this should be, most importantly, bil ma'ruf, with goodwill. It shouldn't be something he does begrudgingly. She's looking after his child. He should at least honor this. لا تضار والدة بولدها. This is very relevant to our society. We see this all the time. لا تضار والدة بولدها ولا مولود له بولده. No mother should be hurt using the child, and no father should be hurt using the child. What we see sometimes is when there are quarrels between a husband and wife, then the children are used as pawns in the game. And the children are used in many different ways by each person, the husband or the wife, to hurt the other person's feelings, to harm them in some way. And so this should not happen. And Allah is making it very clear here that the mother shouldn't be harmed using the child in some way, and the father also should not be harmed. So basically, don't use the children. You have had your arguments, you have had your divorce, now keep it at that. Have your goodwill between you, negotiate amicably and nicely and friendly, bil ma'ruf, with goodness and with goodwill, but don't use the children to fight your fights. وَعَلَى الْوَارِثِ مِثْلُ ذَلِكَ. So in the way that it's upon the husband to provide for this divorced wife for her food and her clothing, similarly, if he dies, then his inheritor, the executor of his will basically, he then has to take over and he has to continue providing. Because you can imagine, this woman has given birth, she's looking after this child for this man. She's obviously, it's her child as well, but of course it's his child too. And she's breastfeeding this child, she's nurturing this child, and then all of a sudden he dies. And just because he wasn't married to her, she'll be stuck. She has no inheritance, she's stuck. Who's going to provide for her if there's no state to provide? So then Allah has made provision for this too. That the inheritor of this man should, if he dies, he should then continue to provide for her until the time comes. فَإِنْ أَرَادَا فِصَالًا عَنْ تَرَاضٍ مِّنْهُمَا. And then, whenever it is, within that 2-year period, if the two negotiate, this husband and the ex-husband and wife, if they then negotiate and they think, okay, let's now start weaning this child, let's stop the breastfeeding. It may be at 6 weeks, 6 months, a year, 1.5 years, but they come to an agreement. This is the time when we'll stop. And when they do this, then there is no problem with it. But this should be عَنْ تَرَاضٍ مِّنْهُمَا. This should be with mutual agreement, وَتَشَاوُرْ, and discussion. It shouldn't be a unilateral decision where the husband decides, right, that's it, I don't want you to breastfeed anymore, I'm going to stop providing for you. This is it, I'm done. In the same way, the woman shouldn't say, no, I'm not going to breastfeed anymore, I'm done, I want to now move on and marry someone else, I don't want to carry on like this, being stuck. No, they have to decide with mutual agreement and with discussion, even if it means keeping other people involved too, the middle people, to help with the negotiations. وَإِنْ أَرَدْتُمْ أَن تَسْتَرْضِعُوا أَوْلَادَكُمْ فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْكُمْ إِذَا سَلَّمْتُمْ مَا آتَيْتُمْ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. And if you decide that, and through your discussions with this wife, that she's not going to breastfeed the child, so you want to give the child to someone else to breastfeed, another nursing mother, then there's no harm in this either. إِذَا سَلَّمْتُمْ مَا أَتَيْتُمْ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, as long as you give what is due. You know, the expenses for the food and the clothing, you provide that to the mother for as long as she has done the breastfeeding, and also you provide that nursing mother too, as long as she does it, according to the accepted rate at the time. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ بَصِيرٌ. And fear Allah. Once again Allah reminds us. And fear Allah. وَاعْلَمُوا, and know that surely Allah is watching over what you do. Allah is watching, He knows. He knows what we are doing. So if you are harming your ex-wife, or the ex-wife is harming the husband, using the child as a pawn in their games, in their fights, or if they're deliberately being difficult, if they're trying to come to an agreement, but one of them is deliberately being difficult and not allowing an agreement to be reached, for whatever reason, for whatever ulterior motive, then remember Allah is watching. So be careful. Because if Allah is watching, He knows what He knows what you're doing, He knows what is in your hearts, He knows your intentions, and of course, you'll be held to account for this on the Day of Judgment. Be very careful. And in the final ayah, وَالَّذِينَ يُتَوَفَّوْنَ مِنْكُمْ وَيَذَرُونَ أَزْوَاجًا يَتَرَبَّصْنَ بِأَنفُسِهِنَّ أَرْبَعَةَ أَشْهُرٍ وَأَشْهُرٍ. And as for the women whose husbands pass away, so Allah says, as for those of you who pass away and you leave wives, then they should wait, يَتَرَبَّصْنَ بِأَنفُسِهِنَّ, they should wait with themselves, meaning they should have an iddah, a waiting period, أَرْبَعَةَ أَشْهُرٍ وَعَشْرًا, for 4 months and 10 days. فَإِذَا بَلَغْنَ أَجَلَهُنَّ, and then when they finish this time, these 4 months and 10 days, فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِيمَا فَعَلْنَ فِي أَنفُسِهِنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, then there is no harm in anything that they decide to do after this. If they choose to continue living like this on their own, or if they choose to marry, there's no harm. There's no blame on them. وَاللَّهُ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ خَبِيرٌ, and Allah knows that which you do. So again, we are reminded that Allah is watching, He is listening, He has put down these boundaries, these commandments. We should try to uphold them as much as possible. We should remember that if Allah knows, then there's no hiding. A person might think that I can say something, even as a joke, and then that's it, it's okay, it doesn't matter, don't worry, Allah is most forgiving, most merciful. No, this doesn't work. These subjects, as you can see from the tone of these ayat, these are serious subjects, serious matters, that should not be taken lightly. And may Allah Ta'ala give us a tawfiq to recite the Qur'an, to learn these lessons and to Allah Ta'ala allow us to uphold the commandments of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, and allow us to uphold His boundaries. Yes. Yeah.
You know this is a period you're talking about 4 months, 10 days.
Yeah.
I was being told that right or not right or not sure.
That is best. That is best.
Yeah, but if that's what I'm saying.
No, so if she's required to work, for example.
Yeah, I must say, if somebody, suppose she was on holiday in Saudi Arabia or something, and she lived in Pakistan or vice versa, and they were there, you know, I mean, she had to go back home. Then does it mean that she has to stay there until that 4 hours, days?
Well, if it's possible for her to stay,
then it's better for her to do.
Yeah, but otherwise it might be very difficult if she's in a different country.
Yeah.
You know, depends on the situation essentially. Ideally, she should stay in the same place. But otherwise,
What about that question? Custody of the children.
Yeah.
What happens, you know, if they both want the child sort of thing,
yeah.
You know, why
Yes.
how do they settle that? I didn't quite get that.
Okay, so regarding the custody, as long as the mother is required, so essentially when it comes to the breastfeeding and so on, then it's best if the child stays with the mother. But afterwards, the child should go to the father, who will then provide the rest of the upbringing.
That's the person the mother still wants him.
Yes, and in which case then, yes, in which case then it comes back to this whole discussion and actually coming to some sort of an agreement. And it's never easy. It's never easy, but they have to negotiate, and this is what Allah says again and again, that it has to be with goodwill. So with good intentions, essentially. And so, because often there are all sorts of politics that are at play as well, where one person is trying to get one up on the other person, and games are played and so on. But this shouldn't happen, ideally.
With human beings, it's very difficult, isn't it? That's the problem, isn't it?